Today, I've brought the 3 most toxic laws that seducers used to manipulate people into falling in love with them throughout history, and that people are still effectively using today from The Art of Seduction, written by the same guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power. Let's get started. The first one is create temptation. In this method, you pretty much convince people that being with you is a challenge for them. It doesn't matter how much they seem not interested in you, eventually they're gonna try hard to be with you. Don Juan was a famous seducer. His body count was probably in the thousands, and one of his victims was a girl called Criseta. She was just an orphan and a poor girl that he managed to lie his way into her pants, basically. He gained her sympathy and managed to create a romance between him and her, only to sleep with her and to never see her again. He went out to get milk and never came back. But years later, he was walking in a park and he saw an elegant woman that looked rich AF, and she had a 2-year-old son, and this woman looked a lot like Criseta. He started having so many questions about how she got rich and who's this child, is it his child? And when he talked to this woman's maid, she told him that indeed it is Criseta, but she married to a rich guy called Martinez. Now, Don Juan started going to the park a lot just to see Criseta, and when eventually he was able to talk to her, she told him that she was married and that talking to him is forbidden. Basically, she gave him the rejection treatment. She didn't want anything to do with him, and her life was great now. So Don Juan got depressed. He started dreaming about unaliving her husband, and he had countless sleepless nights. So eventually he gave up and he wanted to leave town and wanted to send her a goodbye message. But after Criseta read the goodbye message, she told him that she actually still has feelings for him, that she would agree to go with him, but he would have to come to her house and take her from there in broad daylight. Don Juan was like, alright, bet. He knocks at the door asking for Miss Martinez, basically Criseta, but the woman who opened the door tells him that there's no one with that name. He then says, what about Criseta? And the woman recognizes her and she says she's in the back with the maids. Don Juan is like, what the frick? Why is she in the maid's rooms? He sees the same child that he thought was his child, but now he's wearing poor people's clothes and playing in the dirt. He was like, I'm sure that's not the same child. And then when he reaches the room, he finds Criseta, but she's actually in maid's clothes. And she reveals to him that it was pretty much a freaking prank. She did a Vitali rich guy prank on him. She knew that the only thing that would make Don Juan like her and desire her again is the fact that she's now married to a rich guy and that she has a new life, and the fact that he can't have her. It created a challenge for him. She knew that the only way he would talk to her is if she was forbidden fruit. And even after Don Juan found out about this prank, he still asks Criseta to marry him, but she refuses because she knows that as soon as he marries her, he's gonna start looking elsewhere and he's gonna lose attraction for her. So she agrees to being in a situationship. So the process of creating temptation can be summed down with 2 steps. When you meet someone new, you become flirtatious, you show them interest, you stimulate their desires. But after that's been established, you create a barrier. You show them that for some reason they cannot have you. Whether it's because of social conditions, the fact that you're in a specific community that doesn't allow you to talk to other people, or it can also be race. You can't be with them because they're black or Hispanic or white. You can't be with them because you're already married or you have a girlfriend. It could be because you both have different religions. All of these barriers that you put basically create a challenge in the person who's being seduced's mind. The book says that people are perversely excited about what they cannot or should not have. By the way, in this video, I only picked 3 methods that were super toxic in my opinion, but there were actually 24 methods in The Art of Seduction that I didn't include because I didn't want the video to be 50 minutes long. But you can actually use today's video sponsor, Shortform, to check out the other methods. If you actually go to Shortform and search for Art of Seduction, the first thing you'll notice is the 1-page summary, which has the summary of the entire book, but the summaries include notes from outside of the book. For example, if you look between the laws, you can actually see this short form note, and it basically does the job of commentary, but for the actual book. For example, it tells you, you may want to proceed with some caution if introducing an element of danger into someone's life. Research shows that while some people are drawn to an element of danger, many are averse to it. So it's basically contradicting with the actual rules that is telling you add an element of danger. And if you actually click on the link, it shows you the article that's talking about danger in relationships. You may not have known this if you just read the book on its own. It also has an audio summary, so you can actually listen to the book.
It's quite common for people to feel trapped by the roles and expectations of society.
You can check any category that you are interested in self-improving in. For example, there's philosophy, there's communication. If you want to become a YouTuber or a content creator, I suggest that highly. And if you go here, you can check out the exercise for the book itself. For example, the book talks about the anti-seducers. There are specific qualities that make you unattractive and you should avoid them. So here it tells you, revisit the repellent qualities Greene identifies. Do you recognize any of these qualities in yourself? I am cheap AF. Save answer. If you use my link, you can actually get access to short form for free for 5 days and get 20% off of your annual subscription. So I can't recommend this enough. Thank you so much, short form, for sponsoring this video. Let's move on to the next method. Isolate the victim. This is exactly what it sounds like, and it's really toxic. And Andrew Tate has lectures on how to pull this off.
All these things tie into isolate and get you away from the outside influence. Every outside influence is your enemy.
So, in ancient China, there was a king called Fu Che, and this guy pretty much humiliated another king who's called Gu Jian. He defeated him in a battle, and instead of killing him, he actually put him to work in his stable. And later on, he released him, but he forced him to pay him a sum of money every year as a token of respect or gratitude that this guy let him go instead of actually killing him. But one day, Gu Jian, instead of sending money to Fu Che, he actually sends 2 fine shits. I'm sorry. Every time I make these jokes, I get a lot of comments saying,
I would have appreciated the video more if it didn't have Gen Z humor.
Anyways, these 2 girls were the hottest girls in China. They had the cloud cluster type of hair, but more particularly, there was one girl who was more beautiful than the other. Her name was Shi Shi, and Fu Chai pretty much got obsessed with her. She had the most beautiful voice, and she danced so well. She was also very smart and could keep up with him when they talked about intellectual things. The next day, he started following her everywhere, and when he went to attend his affairs, he was thinking about her the entire time. So he started actually bringing her to the council with him and taking her opinion, and she started convincing him to not listen to his ministers. She told him that he was smarter than them. So she pretty much bewitched him, and she wasn't easy to please at all. When she asked for something and she didn't get it, she would actually cry, and that would make Fu Chai's heart melt. He would freaking simp over her. Eventually, she asked him to build a really big and luxurious palace for her, and he actually agreed. And not only that, every time he would spend any time away from her, she would cry and she would be angry, to the point where he missed councils and ignored family and friends and even neglected public functions. His biggest concern was to make sure that she wasn't angry, that she was always satisfied with him. Eventually, he got a letter saying to him that he pretty much spent all of the money from the treasury on this bih. And not only that, when he actually went back from the palace to the capital, he found Gu Jiang and his army, the guy who worked at the stable previously, who gave him the 2 girls initially. And instead of Fu Chai giving himself to this guy, he was like, okay, bye, and he freaking unalived himself. Turns out, Gu Jian deliberately trained this girl for 3 years, teaching her how to sing, how to dance, how to seduce, how to walk, how to talk, particularly to seduce this guy and take up all of his mental capacity and take him away from power. The book says, what lets people seem strong is the series of nests and safety nets they envelop themselves in. Their friends, their family, their daily routines, which give them a feeling of continuity, safety, and control. Suddenly, pull the rug out from under them, drop them alone into some foreign place where the familiar signposts are gone or scrambled, and you will see a different person. Deliberately disturb their habits, get them to do things they have never done, and your targets will wake up one day distanced from everything that normally comforts them. Then they will turn to you for help, like a child crying out for its mother when the lights are turned off. In seduction, as in warfare, the isolated target is weak and vulnerable. So, it's toxic. I personally see this mistake happen so many times with friends who I know. They get into a relationship, they become infatuated with a girl, and eventually they stop talking to their friends, they stop going out with them, they stop playing Fortnite with them. I'm talking about you, Basil. The problem with this is that you give all of the power to the person that you are in a relationship with, and psychologically that person doesn't want that power. They want someone who is capable of being happy and social on his own, not depending and relying solely on them. So this is something that you need to be conscious of when you get into a relationship. Don't devalue the other relationships that you have, and don't start treating people in a bad way just because you have your girlfriend who's always supplying you with love and attention. Next law, appear to be an object of desire. What I like about this law or method is how it enables anyone virtually to become attractive regardless of how they look like or how charismatic or funny they are. All of the things that make a person attractive are irrelevant here. There was a Prussian philosopher called Paul Rey, and he met a really beautiful Russian girl called Louvain Salome. Paul was infatuated with this girl. She was everything he could ever wish for. She was smart, intelligent. She had his same ideas about philosophy, and they started talking a lot and they got pretty close to each other. But Salome knew that Paul was Friedrich Nietzsche's friend, and one day she asked him if he could introduce her to him. A normal person's reaction would be like, fuck no, I'm not gonna freaking introduce my crush to the guy who's cool AF, who everybody loves, who became famous for his writing. But because Paul had this philosophy where he criticized Christian morals, he was like, okay, I'll introduce you to him. And eventually Nietzsche came and met Salome. And when Paul saw how Nietzsche and Salome were talking and sometimes even not including him into the conversation, he was like, oh crap. It basically created what Robert Greene calls a love triangle, where now two people are competing for the same person. But now it was time for Salome to go back to Russia, but because Paul wanted to be alone with her again, he asked her to go with him to Germany and stay at his house. And when Nietzsche heard this, he was like, I'll come along. Paul was like, bruh, I can't shake this guy off. And on the way to Germany, Nietzsche and Salome took a walk together, and when they came back, Paul sensed that these two had something physical happen between them. Bro was traumatized. Salome told Paul that Nietzsche invited her to stay at his house and that she had accepted the invitation. Instead of Paul saying the normal thing, which is, that girl is for the streets, he got consumed with doubts and anger. And when she eventually came back, he lashed out on her, talking shit about his friend Nietzsche. But of course, Salome defended Nietzsche, and that freaking devastated Paul. Yet, eventually, Salome surprised Paul. She told him that she wanted to stay with him and him alone. They actually lived in Berlin for a while and got rid of Nietzsche, but then the cycle continued, but with other people. She was always surrounded by guys, and Paul felt like he was always battling for her attention, so eventually he dumped her and he was like, peace out, I'll end my life, reasonable crash out. And in 1911, the same thing continued with Salome, but now with Sigmund Freud. She actually joined his lectures about psychology, and he started being fond of her. He would be depressed when she missed his lectures. And later on, one of his young students, called Victor, showed interest in her. And even though Freud felt that Victor was his son, he was now angry at him. He got jealous, and luckily for Victor, Salome actually ended up dumping him, and she remained friends with Freud until she actually died. So the lesson here is that people want what other people want. One of the biggest reasons people liked her is that she was always surrounded by guys and admirers. This is what is called in psychology social proof. A restaurant that is full of people is always more attractive than a restaurant that's empty, which is why some restaurants actually pay people to sit in them. The author also says that the third point in the triangle doesn't necessarily have to be another person. It can be a group of admirers, and this is why celebrities have so much attraction. It's because they are surrounded by people who express their want for them. Even something as little as having more followers on Instagram can actually make you appear more attractive to people. The book also warns you about a common misconception. Most people think that being surrounded by too many people of the opposite sex actually makes people fear you or it repulses people from you, but that is actually not true. It also aligns with a book that's very popular in the manosphere and the red pill that basically tells you that girls are willing to share a high value man than to be with a low value loser, basically. I don't necessarily completely agree with that, but there is a lot of truth to it. When it comes to Salome, a lot of people actually wanted to be with her simply because they knew about her reputation with being with Nietzsche. Just because she was with someone who is considered a celebrity or highly perceived in that time, people wanted to associate themselves with her because of that. It's the same with Pete Davidson, not necessarily being attractive physically, but still dating the hottest girls simply because he has social proof. If you like this video, you'll probably enjoy this one as well, and don't forget to check out short form if you want to continue reading this book. And I'll see you in the next video.